The iPhone Fold.
Today in front of us we have an unreleased smartphone that you were never supposed to see. It's called the LG Rollable. Like an Egyptian scroll, it rolls out an extended display in what's arguably the most uniquely operating smartphone of all time.
Wow.
Alas, LG did indeed pass away before releasing this phone to the world, but I managed to snag one from out of their grave. There is a fine line between grave robbing and forensic archaeology, and it feels kind of illegal to hold this, but I'll do my best to keep it functional throughout the review, but no promises. It is interesting that the phone plays music to hide the opening hum of its internal motors, and when it's opening you can see some of the internal linkages at the edge of the display. They look kind of like a zipper, and it's going to be fascinating opening this guy up to see how it works from the inside. Also, when the LG Rollable slides open, the internal motors are surprisingly strong. LG said the opening process was good for about 200,000 extensions, and if I happen to squeeze it during the opening process to restrict its movement, it'll pause and ask me nicely not to do that anymore. There is a minor pinch point on the backside when the sections come back together, but it's not large enough to nip at my fingers, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'm not gonna lie, if I had to choose between a folding phone and a rollable phone, I would probably choose the rollable. Cause look how cleanly it expands my video to go full screen. And going from a 5.5-inch diagonal video to nearly a 7.5-inch diagonal screen, it's a grower. And it ends up being almost the same size as an iPad mini, which is 8.3 inches. No folding, no unfolding, just a simple stroke of the finger and it instantly gets larger. Insane. Seeing how cool this is makes me all the more sad that we lost LG. F in chat for our friends. Nobody will ever be able to touch a phone as cool as this, except for me. One misconception that I had about LG's rollable phone was that it was going to have the soft exterior plastic screen on both sides of the device. And I was right about the soft screen, at least the part about it being on the front. LG is using the same fingernail scratchable Mohs 2-level plastic as Samsung does on their folding phones, but that soft screen does not in fact end up being exposed on the back side of the device. LG cleverly designed the phone so that the screen rolls under a rear glass panel, yet while remaining fully functional. Kind of like LG's transparent TVs that we see at CES every year. Here on the back we can see your calendar, a few widgets, and even open up the rear cameras for selfies. Then when we go to unroll the rollable, it brings the flexible screen back out to the front as it extends into tablet mode. LG had plans to release this phone back in 2021 before they decided to close their smartphone division, and it just goes to show how far ahead of their time they were, since this phone from 5 years ago feels more futuristic than what Samsung and Apple both dropped this year. The internal motors of LG's Rollable are strong enough to push my metal channel locks across the desk, and it can even propel 2 of my textbooks stacked on top of each other. It is an extremely strong phone. LG included a few live backgrounds that expand out with each of the unrollings. And for the most part, it feels like a very finished device, ready for public release, which makes the canceling of the phone all the more depressing. On the back we have our 2 cameras, a 64 megapixel camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, right above a rear fingerprint scanning power button. And lucky for us, I can see some screw holes in there underneath the transparent back glass panel, which will probably make the teardown slightly easier. There's a USB-C charging port in the bottom left, and an externally visible screw on the bottom right. There is a curved edge for the screen, and then another screw up top that holds the area where the flexible screen starts to retract. This is going to be the first screw I take out. There are some capacitive volume buttons along the left side. I'm not the biggest fan of those, but who am I complaining to? LG Mobile isn't around to listen. It's time to open it up and see how the rollable works from the inside. Nobody has ever done this before, so let's hope I don't ruin the only rollable smartphone in existence. I'll pop off the 2 Phillips head screws, one on either side of the roller, and then I'll warm up the back glass with some hot air. The goal here is to try to remove it from the phone in one piece, but glass is glass though, and we know how that sometimes ends up. With the glass completely removed, successfully might I add, the whole side of the rollable pops off, revealing that just inside the metal covering is a long, thin line of bristles, which I assume helps keep dust and debris from getting inside the rear portion of the screen. Getting dust inside the back would not be easy to clean out, and of course, it's obviously not water resistant in the slightest. With the glass and the complete right side of the phone removed, I'll try to retract the display, which then completely releases the flexible screen from its constraints. It's cool seeing how the software turns on and off that far portion of the screen depending on how extended the hardware is. We also notice how tight that radius is for the curve. Obviously a folding phone would have an even tighter crease in the center, so LG is still playing it pretty safe curve-wise, or was playing it safe I guess. I miss them so much. The screen has its zipper-like supports in both the top and the bottom edges, and 2 metal guides along the side, which help keep the screen tight against the back of the phone. This knowledge will come in handy when it's time to reassemble the phone later, assuming it lives that long. With the rollable screen fully extended, it reveals several more Phillips head screw locations on the movable back half of the panel. I'll remove these 9 visible screws, and then we can use even more heat and my pry tool to pop off the glass around the camera lenses and fingerprint scanning power button. This is the main 54 megapixel camera that does have optical image stabilization, and the 12 megapixel ultra wide does not have OIS, which is normal. I'll remove 7 more screws back in here, and then make my way up to the super tiny front-facing 3 megapixel selfie camera and pop off the upper and lower bezels. This is what allows the whole flexible display to lift up and away from the phone body. I'm so nervous right now I'm actually shaking. Flexible screens are incredibly fragile, so removing it successfully from one of the most rare and exclusive phones on the planet definitely deserves a thumbs up. And there it is, the internals of the unrivaled LG Rollable. The flexible screen has supportive slats on the back like an escalator, and if I hold it just right, we can still swipe on the screen while it's removed to activate the opening mechanism. And that is amazing. It looks like the big motor itself is up near the top. We'll take a closer look at that in a second, but there are 3 spring-loaded mechanical arms below that motor which help the whole panel extend linearly, uniformly. Absolutely fascinating. LG was so far ahead of its time, and we definitely didn't appreciate what we had until they were gone. I'll be turning the phone off for this next part. Now that he's safely asleep, we can disconnect the battery and pop off the screen ribbons just like little Legos. The engineering that went into this thing is wild. There's still no dogs allowed on the battery, which is good to know. It's got 4,500 milliamp hours, and the motor itself is held in place with 6 silver screws. With the screws gone and the motor rack detached from the frame rail, you can see how spring-loaded the lower arms are. They want to retract or constrict, and add resistance to the extension as it gets opened. I'll pull away the loudspeaker, which is screwed in with the main motor. It does have balls inside. And then, moment of truth, the motor of the LG Rollable is actually 2 motors. We'll get to them more in a second. These springy arms are just so fun. Anyway, the dual geared motors on the Rollable are attached to a pretty standard straight-tooth gear rack. Roll it out to extend the screen, and roll it back in to retract the screen. 2 motors with 2 gears explains how I was able to move whole textbooks across my desk while opening. LG over-engineered this rollable phone to be extremely beefy, and it's been super cool to see how it's assembled. Probably the most innovative phone ever made, but the world back in 2021 was just not ready to receive it. And I would feel more than just a little guilty if it didn't work anymore because I took it apart. So, cross your fingers. With the motor back in place and screwed in tight, I can reattach the display and the battery ribbon cables. I'll physically collapse or retract the phone back into its closed position so I can slot in the flexible folding screen to the moving backside without damaging the edges. I'll put the screws back in under the camera glass and then take the screen back out since I forgot to screw in the 9 screws underneath that back panel. After reslotting the flexible screen for the second time, look at that, he's alive. It's always a testament to durability if a phone can survive being completely taken apart. I'm both impressed and depressed. The coolest phone on the planet is one that literally no one gets to have. And I think I need to go out and touch some grass. Literally. Thanks to Dbrand's new touch grass skins, I can take grass with me wherever I go. And you might be like, hey Jerry, that's not real grass.
Car crash, car crash. Damn, my game keeps crashing.
Critics and viewers have wildly different reactions to the Super Mario Galaxy movie because there's nothing more video games than critics desperate for media with substance disagreeing with consumers that love flashing lights and loud sounds.
Oh, we love it. Bruce, don't forget, we got our funny voices too. Oh no, the critics hated my movie.
That's pretty good. I sound like Chris Pratt.
Thanks.
We have more than cutting a cinematic commentary for you on this week's Inside Games Roundup. Bungie hints at coming changes to their extraction shooter marathon. You can now subscribe to an all-indie Game Pass if you want. And Thick as Thieves is completely shifting its game type before it even launches.
Bananas. I saw previews for that game. Yeah. Hey, at least for once, we're not reporting on thousands of developers losing their jobs. So let's throw to the one Inside Game staffer that's technically never been legally employed, Brian Gar.
That's right. Been selling Legos on eBay my entire life. That's 90% of my income. All right, boys, let's talk about the Super Mario Galaxy movie. It's out, but critics, they're not, it's no bellissima. It is currently at a 40% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, with them calling it a not great follow-up to the first film. The San Jose Mercury
Once upon a time, my good friend MKBHD decided to buy a $5,380 smartphone. It's called the Virtu Agent Q, which supposedly is the world's first ultra-premium AI agent phone for entrepreneurs, and has a very lucrative promise of literal gold-plated interior.
でもあるさす勝利をもたらさ
What if one device held infinite possibilities? Modular and extensible. The Mega Comics.
I gotta ask, because do you think animators know which scenes are gonna be used? The one scene that has gotten spread around from JJK season 3, it was like designed to be like, I was like, where he flips his hair back as he's like, you know, JJK is almost taken over JoJo in terms of like the meme game that it takes over. Yeah, you know, I gotta ask, because do you think animators...
What is this? This couldn't be a... Oh, God. Permanent opposing industrial strength magnetic bed. Hand hewn from a single tree. Oh, man, look at this mattress. Oh, what is it? Smells like a blend of cashmere. Mohair, silk, and wool, maybe. The thread count on this is in the thousands. And it's filled with down feathers of a baby griffin. That's illegal? Glass of milk. This feels like a trap designed by some kind of sick genius.
I gotta ask, because do you think animators know which scenes are gonna be memed?
Hold on, let me refresh this one. Refresh.
MVP も楽勝よ
preventing anyone from looking over your shoulder or snooping. Now, yes, you could always just buy a cheap $20, $30 screen protector like this one that does that through polarization. But, unlike that screen protector, this actually blocks all viewing angles, horizontal or vertical off-axis. But also, because it's built into the display, you can turn it on for just the pixels you want to, when you want to. So maybe only in certain apps. So you can have it only block out your banking app and your texting app. Or even only black out incoming notifications, which is incredible. This is a genuinely useful innovation. It's special that it's actually a new hardware feature, which we really don't get that often in the smartphone world these days. But, like I said, everything is a trade-off. The way they pulled this off is they essentially have two types of pixels on this new display. Wide-angle pixels that you can view from everywhere, and narrow-angle pixels that seem to have some type of focusing lens on them, so you can only see them from straight on. So when you're just using the phone like normal, all the pixels are on. But when you decide to turn on the privacy display, it simply turns off the wide-angle pixels, and it leaves only the narrow-angle pixels. So you achieve that privacy filter effect, but now that also means you just turned off half the pixels. So your resolution is actually quite literally cut in half. And you can actually see it. Like there's blockier edges around text and smaller details and fine contrast. Here, I literally bought a microscope for this. So this
is privacy display off, like normal. And this is privacy display on. You can see those pixels literally turning off. So yes, less resolution, and also yes, peak brightness. I assume that most people would rather have the slightly longer battery life as a trade-off over like a perfect screen. So nerds like me will lock in and immediately switch to 1440p in the settings right out the box, and we will notice more the slight resolution differences and viewing angle differences, and we'll upvote every comment on Reddit that chastises Samsung for using the 8-bit display again. But at the end of the day, this is the trade-off that they decided to make to have this one really cool feature that they probably believe will sell more phones. But to be totally clear, this is still a really good display. But like I said, if you're a pixel peeper like me, just know what you're getting into, because there are better looking displays that you can get for your $1,300, ironically probably also manufactured by Samsung. But if that's your number one priority, there's other places you can look. Also, subscribe for more phones under microscopes. Here's another trade-off, this new design. And it's not even really that new of a design, they just made the phone a little thinner, a little lighter, and a little rounder at the corners to make it look like the rest of the flagship phones that they make. But even that, for copying the iPhone, performance is generally, it's great. It's almost a formality at this point. Hey, are animations smooth? Yup. Can it handle heavy multitasking and gaming? Yup. The redesigned vapor chamber with less volume inside the phone is doing just
People, prepare. Today we present Samsung's pristine and premium S26 Ultra, a polished, pocketized powerhouse packed with potent processing, privacy pixels, and plenty of prestige. It'll presently be pressured with painstaking poking, prodding, prying, and un poquito of peeling to see if the polished paint on this pricey piece of personal preference prevails. Perhaps parts pop, or since the circular lenses are removable, and we'll have to find out here for sure in just a second, as we always do. It would be epic of Samsung if they could turn this translucent plateau into a notification of some kind, like how the smartphone brand Nothing does. I don't know if an internally glowing camera island would help justify the $1,300 price point or not, but it would still look pretty cool. The part that bothers me the most about the privacy display is how dim it gets when maximum privacy protection is turned on. I mean, it works for sure, 100%. I have an angle finder here that can tell the exact angle at which a person might be able to still see your screen. And with max privacy mode enabled, it's basically a 45-degree window of visibility from the side. Without privacy mode, anyone standing within an 80-degree radius can basically see your screen. Privacy mode cuts the viewing angle visibility in half. If I were to get an S26 Ultra, which I probably won't, I would probably just turn on the privacy notifications. This is where a text or email comes in, and the only portion of the screen that gets dimmed or blacked out is the notification text itself. Really incredible isolation. iPhone users are going to be ecstatic when Apple invents this in a few years. Busting out the microscope, you can see that Samsung basically has two types of pixels, narrow pixels and wide-angle pixels, with the phone. But it is nice knowing that it does not get stuck, not hurt so much, with wire. It's getting to the point where we can't say the thing. One mistake that I'll never make again, though, is not having a screen protector on my phone. I cracked the glass on my S24 Ultra a few months ago and ended up spending nearly $300 to get a genuine AMOLED screen replacement reinstalled on my phone, and that was doing it myself. A screen protector would have saved me, so not having a screen protector is a very expensive mistake that I won't be making again. I'll just pop the S-Pen back into the slot where it belongs. What's cool about Dbrand's Prism Screen Protector, they're one of my channel sponsors, is that it even works with privacy mode. They come 2 to a box and are foolproof to install, and of course they are made with real glass. Link is down in the description. It's also interesting to find out that Samsung ditched titanium this year. We're back to using armor aluminum, which I'm actually okay with. The buttons are still removable. Titanium is cool and all, but aluminum gets the job done just fine, and it's easier to work with and easier to recycle at the end of its life. Now the entire phone frame is made with just one metal and not 2 separate metals glued together. The bottom of the phone has our 60-watt USB-C port, as well as our SIM card tray, and it has a gray rubber ring to help with the IP68 waterproof rating. There's no expandable storage, which is still annoying to me as a human who keeps his phone for a really long time, but also doesn't like to delete stuff. The logo on the back glass looks impressively etched. Apple could learn a few things about glass etching from Samsung. And moving up to the camera plateau, we have our top 50 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, protected with glass. Then our 200 megapixel camera, also with glass. And at the bottom, our 50 megapixel 5x telephoto camera that we took apart during the teardown. If you want to see Samsung's new 37% improved ALOP design that they didn't tell anyone about, feel free to watch the teardown video after this one. Then we have the 10 megapixel 3x telephoto and the laser autofocus on the side. The single-tone LED flash is also protected with glass. And I know I gave Samsung some grief about the lenses popping off on last year's phone, but this year I think they fixed it. Yeah, they still come off, but this time around it's almost like they're supposed to. The rings come off with the glass still intact, which means if you were to crack the glass on one of your camera lenses, it might just be a $10 fix that still keeps your IP rating intact, especially since the lenses just click right back into place. I'm impressed. Samsung took a flaw and turned it into a feature. Huge thumbs up from me, but let me know what you think down in the comments. The screen itself has basically remained the same as last year, still 1440p if you don't have privacy mode engaged, and still 2600 nits if you don't have privacy mode engaged, and still 120 Hz. It lasts for about 20 seconds under the heat from my lighter without any major damage to the pixels. Samsung has continued with the under-display ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, but again, for some reason, my level 7 deeper grooves just ain't slapping like they used to. I imagine Corning tweaked something in the glass recipe since last year, cause it's holding its own against my pics quite a bit better. The ultrasonic scanner still works even with the level 7 scratches. Finally, the bin test. The only Samsung to ever fail this test, of course, is the Samsung Trifold, which is to be expected, and this 26 Ultra, even with the switch back to aluminum, is still a rock-solid beast of a smartphone, with zero flex when bent from the front or when bent from the back. The only thing that will ever break this phone is a drop. And you might be like, hey wow, that is the most manliestly rugged case I've ever seen. And yeah, Dbrand took some creative liberties with the ultra rugged tank case. It's got more than a dozen little Easter eggs built in, from GPS coordinates of Area 51, Braille, Morse code. Fingers crossed nobody steals these Easter eggs. If you know, you know. It even has built-in magnets. Speaking of which, Dbrand's totally clear zero yellow and ghost case